It's a new week. Welcome to the Monday episode of Business Morning here on Channels Television. I'm Ini John Mekwa. Well, let's start off with what's going on in the oil sector. A lot is going on with the invasion of Russia in Ukraine. Oil prices continued its surge today as the market reacted to supply disruptions stemming from Russia's ongoing invasion of Ukraine and the possibility of a ban on Russian oil and natural gas. West Texas Intermediate crude futures, that's the U.S. oil benchmark, spiked nearly 9% higher to 125 per barrel. At a point, it went as high as 130. Ah, man. It's the highest since July 2008 before it retreated to that. And then the international benchmark Brent crude soared 9.9% higher at $129.75. Brent, it hit a high of 139 at some point overnight, also the highest since July 2008. Well, we'll talk a little bit more about some of that impact and the issue of corporate earnings back here in Nigeria. That will dominate our first conversation right after this break. To stay with us, this is Business Morning on Channels Television. You're welcome back. Well, for investors in equities in Nigeria, this is earnings season. A lot of corporates have been releasing their 2021 full-year results. And of course, it's also related to taxes. With declaration of profits comes the responsibility of taxes. So we'll talk about corporate profit and income tax responsibility with Mr. Bismarck Arwani, the Chief Executive Officer of Financial Derivatives Company. Good morning, Mr. Arwani. Good to have you in.
Good morning, Annie.
Yeah, just before we go in there, I don't think we can run away from just mentioning at least what's going on in the oil space. Oil went as high as 129, 139.
Actually, it got up to $140. Now it's settled at about 130.
Yeah.
Why is this happening? It's happening because the U.S. is considering banning oil imports from Russia. And the effect of this is that Russia is the largest oil producer after the United States. If you cut off the supply of Russian oil, it sends the price up. So in the futures market, it went as high as 139, and now it's settled at 130. What's the answer to this? The answer to this is that the U.S. is going to Venezuela, which had been banned all this time, to bring back its oil. They're fast-tracking the Iran deal. So the amount of oil that is going out from Russia will be equal to the amount of oil that is coming in if these deals come through. But for us in Nigeria, it means something. The last time we saw oil at this price was 2008. Guess what? In 2008, Umaru Yar'Adua was the president. Guess what? Charles Oludo was the governor. The external reserves were as high as $60 billion. The excess crude account was $22 billion. And you know what? The Naira was trading at 158 Naira to a dollar. Back to the future, we call it. 2022. What? The reserves, $39 billion. Excess crude account, 0. Right? The Naira trading at 570, 580, so to speak. So, in other words, with the same price of oil, right? You are having a currency which is 300% weaker than what it was in 2008.
What's the variation?
Well, the truth is that times have changed, right? But the chickens have come home to roost. So we have to do something different. But definitely, we call it the paradox of oil. Naira up, oil price up, Naira down. Oil price down, Naira down. Because remember, during the pandemic, Brent came down as low as $28 a barrel. Now it's $100, $100 more than what it is. And all of us should be happier. The reality is that all things being equal, the Naira should appreciate, the reserves should be higher, all of us should be happier. But
is this all because of, I'm thinking of the situation in Nigeria, is it all because of inability to meet up with our quota? Is it all about that, or
no,
more?
it's much more than that. There are some structural issues. So the revenues mask the management problems. We have revenue problems, we have management problems, and then we have the shocks. So what happens is that, like the prodigal son, you spend all that you've saved, you borrow some more, and then you go back to your father to say, Father, I've heard. That's what it is.
Wow. This should be good times in Nigeria.
The good times will come back.
Come back.
Sure.
So let's go to the corporate world now, the earnings. We've had a lot of earnings. Investors in the equities, are they smiling as much as they should at this time when we look at the earnings?
I think they're making out like bandits. Basically, they've done about almost 12% this year, right? Last year they did about almost 40%. So, but the context, because 2021 ended, and we are just beginning to see the results, but let us look at 2020. In all, total tax collected in Nigeria in 2020 was 5 trillion naira, of which 34% came from petroleum profit tax. So let's leave that out. But corporate income tax was 1.41 trillion naira, 31%. 1.41 trillion naira. Of this 4.1 trillion naira, right, the top 10 listed companies paid 28% of total tax collected. They paid 391 billion. But guess what? Three companies alone paid 270 billion naira. And those companies are Dangote, 97 billion, MTN, 93 billion, and Airtel, 83 billion. Three companies were responsible for over 70% of what the top 10 companies paid.
Wow.
So I want you to understand that. But then then you find there's a difference between nominal tax and effective taxes, effective tax rates. Because the banks and insurance companies, because revenues on treasury bills and government securities are tax-free, you'll find that the effective tax rates paid by the banks averagely maybe about 12%, while the effective tax rate paid by the manufacturers was about almost 31%. So you'll find that Dangote Cement made 373 billion naira and paid 97 billion naira in taxes, 26%. MTN made 298 billion naira, paid 93 billion naira in taxes, 31%. While Zenith Bank made 255 billion naira and paid only 25 billion naira in tax. Effective rate, tax rate, 10%. That is 2021. But in 2022, now that the tax shelter has been removed, you will find that they will all now pay the higher tax rate. So if you are buying banking stocks, you've got to be careful, because in 2022, the numbers are not going to be looking that very good.
That's good.
Sure.
You see this discouraging investment?
No. Listen, it's not discouraging. People are buying MTN stock. MTN stock is doing better than the banking stocks, right? So everybody's going to be much more efficient. But it's not just corporate income tax that is being paid. Remember that they pay taxes on dividends. Yeah. They pay VAT. Well, the VAT goes 85% to the state governments and 15%. So when you put all of this together, you'll find that the corporates, even though they're making money, the investors are making a lot more money, right? And the government is making money. And to put it in some kind of context, you must understand that it's 270 billion naira paid by these three companies, right? Is almost half of what FAC is shared in 1 month, right? And that is just corporate income tax. Okay, so you got to see it in that, So what should they do, corporate citizens? They should do more, but people should recognize the fact that these corporate people are paying a lot more, even though they're actually giving back to society. Because
and government should make the environment more conducive
absolutely,
for businesses.
Absolutely.
I guess that's one way to compensate them. All right.
Again, like you say, back to the future.
Back to the future. Thank you so much, Mr. Bismarck Rurani. Thank you so much. Always a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Always sharing a lot of knowledge with us. I enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
So we'll take a break now. When we come back, a very short break. The Fintech Association of Nigeria recently launched the Startup Marketplace. What's that about? And what has it got to do with what's going on in the corporate world? Join us right after this break. Yeah, welcome back. Well, the Fintech Association of Nigeria recently launched the Startup Marketplace as part of its efforts to address challenges posed by startups and investors in Nigeria's fintech ecosystem. This newly launched innovative platform was designed to provide startups playing in the fintech ecosystem with access to free and heavily discounted services in funding, legal, infrastructure, cybersecurity, data privacy, and a whole lot more. Well, to tell us how far they have gone with this, we have Mr. Bukola Olutayo, Managing Director, Stellar's Technology Service Limited, joining us to speak on some of the developments in the fintech space. Good to see you, Bukola. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
So tell us about this startup marketplace. How inclusive or non-inclusive is it? Let's see if we have all of you in the association.
Well, the association is for every person in the fintech industry, startup, and to be able to provide a form of direction and also to be able to create a form of enabling environment for the people who are operating within that ecosystem to be able to come up with innovative ideas, to be able to come up with, to be able to deepen the talent pool that we have within that fintech space.
You guys are making a lot of money, attracting a lot of fund in the fintech space, you know, these days. And, well, fortunately, unfortunately, in Nigeria, when you have a lot of attention in one area, you have the good, the bad, the ugly, and the beautiful joining in. So I just ask myself, what protection is there for investment or investors who seem to be streaming towards startups and the fintech space?
Okay, there's a lot of protection. It's more or less like investment risk. These, I would say that depends on the kind of investors or an investment that the investors are bringing in, whether it is equity, whether it is debt. Obviously, if you are bringing in debt, you understand you would have done your due diligence and ensured that, okay, the debt is actually collateralized with the asset of the company. And if it is equity, it means that you have also done your due diligence as an investor to be able to know, okay, what solution the company is bringing into the system, and the growth, the potential growth that is there for the company, and then also to be able to also look at the level of risk that you're also
in essence, it sounds to me
willing
like
to take
investors have to do their own homework individually. You want to get into a company or you want to work with a startup, you have to do your due diligence.
Yes, every investors have to do that. You don't just invest into anything
The
or
association doesn't
anybody.
help.
Well, it's an individual thing. I think what can really help is if the government is able to come up with some level of regulation that kind.
Yeah, the startup bill.
Well, I don't know. That's not enough. So, but a form of regulation for the fintech industry as a whole. You know, for instance, now if you have an industry and you know that they are probably regulated, there is some things that they will be able to do and things that they will not do. You understand? If you have some form of regulations that is within the fintech industry, that to an extent will help to also reduce the level of risk that the investors is also taking. And you know, for any investors that is, if you're an equity investor, you will do your part, the government will do their part, you understand? And once you are also investing as an equity, it means that you are also going in as a long-term investor, and you are also sharing in the risk of the company, you understand? And if you are going in as an investor, if you are going in, then it has to suit your own objective. So what are the objectives? You want to see that a company is bringing in innovative idea, is bringing up solution, what kind of solution, and then you probably also look at, okay, what are the, what's the market area, what's the market that this company is actually capturing. So if it fits into your own profile, and then you'll be able to, because you're an equity investor, you're also going to be involved in the strategic and business decision that the company is taking, and then you'll be able to know if you're actually in the right place or wrong, or in the wrong place. So basically, if you are investing, the protection is the fact is that you are going to be absolutely involved in the business decision of the company. So you won't leave it to any you won't leave it by chance. You are going to probably be involved completely as an investor.
So, having a startup, is it by academic qualification? Is it by natural gifting and talent? or is it just having a dream and then you get an investor and then you start up?
There are different things that come into play before you get into or involved into startup. You notice that even as a startup, your talent is not even enough for you to for you to just come up and say you are going into a startup. You need to have some business acumen to be able to make some business decision. You need to also have that networking to be able to connect to the right people, and then also you need the right talent within your
So you can't just
space.
come out of school, because it seems to be a buffer for a lot of youths these
Yes.
days. So you can't just come out of school and say you want to start.
You can have a lofty idea. You can have a very good dream. I've related with a couple of students in the university, and they are so energetic, and they are very, very happy that the fintech space is actually growing, and that's kind of fit into what they want. But that's not really enough, because it's not just about technology. There's a lot of things that is connected into it. So as a startup, you need to collaborate. You need to, that's why you have many of the startups today, you have a co-founder, because they need to share knowledge. So one individual might not have all the knowledge. Yes, you can have the idea, but a lot of things go into place.
Well, we're almost out of time now, but just before we let you go, one of the benefits Nigeria should get from fintech should be financial inclusion. Are you guys doing anything differently from the banks?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of things that is going on in a lot of innovation that is going to help a lot of people come into the those that are banked
to the financial system.
To the financial system. A lot of technology. We have the mobile money. We have the mobile loans. We also have some technology that is coming up that will help deepen. People are using blockchain and tokenized technology to be able to help deepen the financial.
And all this are happening in the fintech space.
Yes, and then a lot of people will be able to have access to finances without needing to go into the bank.
Well, needless to say that all this also comes with their own risks.
Yes, it comes with a risk. That's why even in the system too, we are upgrading a lot of security, data protection, and data privacy.
All right. Thank you so much, Bukola Olutayo, Managing Director, Stellar's Technology Service Limited. I'm sure we'll follow up on this conversation at a later date.
Yeah,
talking about those risks and how you're protecting people from some of those things. But we'll take a break now. After that, well, it's our time. That's the women. It's the International Women's Day tomorrow, but the whole of this month, here on Business Morning, we want to celebrate the women for the whole of the week. So you need to join us. And we'll start that celebration early today on Business Morning after the break. Do join us then. Welcome back. Well, celebration of women in the month of March is what we do every year. And why not, seeing that women make up slightly less than 50% of Nigeria's population, account for more than 70%, unfortunately, of Nigerians living in extreme poverty. Well, this implies that majority of Nigerians are living in poverty, if 70% of Nigerians are living in poverty, and they need economic empowerment. Meanwhile, in the 2022 budget, the Ministry of Women Affairs is receiving just a little over 1 billion naira for the implementation of 13 economic empowerment programs. Wonder how effective that would be. Well, women are making up for this. We see a lot of women in MSMEs, which is why the latest report by PricewaterhouseCoopers shows that women in Nigeria account for 41% of ownership of micro, small, and medium enterprises. Well, we'll have this conversation and a whole lot more with Habiba Balogun, Director, Success for All Limited. She's one of those 41% we talked about. Good to see you. Good to talk to you
Thank
here.
You. Morning.
Happy Women's Day.
Thank you. You too. You too. Break the bias.
Yes, break the bias. So tell me, what was your first reaction when you saw that all the, I think, 6 bills in the House were rejected by the lawmakers? What came to your mind?
I was flabbergasted, actually. And I was asking myself, what is the problem? Is it that our country, and I'm using the men because these are our elected representatives, so is it that our countries prefers poverty to prosperity. Because we use global benchmarks. Nigerians, we love using global benchmarks. And when you benchmark the most developed countries in the world, the only thing they have in common is the equal opportunity and participation of women in politics, economic life, and so on. They've basically legislated gender equality out of their policies, right? And so we've seen that. We know that. UN Women have engaged. So many other stakeholders. NESG has engaged, educated, raised awareness, sensitized. We all know that Nigeria cannot progress if its women are not able to contribute along with the men. So it's not about women replacing men, right?
Empowered. You have the majority. I mean, just 71% of the people living in extreme poverty are women. So if you want to get the country out of poverty, you have to empower the women. I think it's as simple as that.
It's driving insurgency. It's driving inefficiency. It's driving poverty. You know, women are the majority in terms of workers in agriculture. So I just had to ask myself, so is there a fear or hatred of women that greater than the fear and hatred of poverty? You know, or what are they thinking?
And you know, some facts jumped out of that conversation, because I think it was the Speaker of the House of Representatives who said, when you want to campaign, when you want to go out for your vote, it is women and the youth that make up the majority of campaigning, for driving votes in the marketplace, out on the road, sharing flyers. They are women. And so when it's time to stand up for the women, it's odd. Well, do we say that the women are not presenting their cause well? Because some people gave some reasons. I remember somebody said, oh, women cannot go out for late night meetings. Women cannot, you know. Are we not packaging our requests, or are we not ready?
I'm not sure that it is. You mentioned 70% of the population are poor, and the majority of that are women. That poverty is correlated with illiteracy.
Yes.
Okay, so you have a lot of these women who are going and electing these people, and they're not educated. When people want to keep a population down, one of the things they do is limit their access to education. So a woman who's not educated doesn't know that she has an equal and important role to play in the development and the prosperity of her family and of her community. Like these many women, you've talked about 41%, the PwC report. Yes. Faith Foundation also released a report recently. 23 million Nigerian women own businesses, micro businesses. MSMEs, yeah. And most of them are only doing business because of poverty. They have found themselves, I don't have a choice. I'm not educated, I can't get a job. The only thing I can do is do some kind of business, some kind of trade, petty trade. So they've gone into business because of this, but they are illiterate. If you're illiterate, you cannot do financial reporting of your transaction. If you don't do financial reporting and management, you cannot get loans. So it all goes back to that illiteracy. And where does that illiteracy come from? It comes from that bias, which is why this year is called Break the Bias. I'm poor, I'm a poor family, I have a boy, I have a girl. I will choose to only educate one.
I can afford to educate one. Boy.
I don't need to educate the woman. And in not educating the woman, you are condemning your family, your descendants to more poverty.
Yes. Because, I mean, there was also research that showed that if a woman in the household is educated, then you are more likely to have educated and enlightened children. Because the woman spends more time with the children, spends more time training of the children. So it is what she knows that she imputes in the children at the end of the day.
And peace builders have found this out as well. It is another reason we have greater and greater insurgency in Nigeria. So when I see our legislators making these kinds of decisions, I feel you don't have the excuse of not being educated. You don't have the excuse of not being aware. Keeping women down is keeping our whole country down. Male, female, all children. It's impacting our business environment. Because if you don't have a business environment that is conducive for women, that means it's also excluding so many other men who could be contributing to environment. I mean, I heard what Bismarck said, you know, about the amount of taxes that were paid. The total number of taxes that were paid last year was, in 2020, he said 4.9 billion. Do you know that if you include women, you allow women to contribute to the economic and political development of a country, you can gain $6 trillion. So we have an opportunity, a benefit of $6 trillion. How much is it costing us keeping women out? $12 trillion globally. So you have a cost, you have a benefit. A business person will just look at that and say, I don't have a decision to make. This is common sense. But our politicians, our legislators, they're not looking at it this way. What are they looking at? Culture.
Tradition, religion.
And tradition, okay. That is not ancient African culture and tradition. It was imported from the cultures that also brought us our religions. It's not Christianity, it's not Islam. It's the cultures that those religions came from who have come and said, oh, men should be doing this, women should be doing this. Traditional African cultures realize that you need the wisdom of men and women making decisions together for community benefit. So we've thrown out the best aspects of our culture. We're holding on to aspects of culture, imported aspects of culture that are holding us back. And now you have data showing that if women are empowered, if there's no gender biases, there's gender equality, our country will develop at an amazing rate. We can gain so much. I think for Nigeria, we're talking about $1 trillion. Add to your 4.9 billion, 4.9 trillion, add 1 trillion to that by just opening the door and allowing women to contribute. We're not here to replace men.
So what are women doing about this?
Well,
I know that the Minister of Women Affairs was so upset. She said we're going to take action against this. But what are women doing? Are we too distracted with the domestic front? Are we ready for this?
I think basically we needed what happened to happen. You know, it has really opened women's eyes. And I think now we say, okay, so this is not women and men, some people holding us back. This is all of you deciding we want you to stay down. We don't want you to come up, even if it's going to mean our country coming up. And we're not going to take it lying down. I haven't heard anybody. And I'm not just talking women alone. We have many men who have common sense, who have vision, right? Who have vision, who are looking beyond themselves and their own little power structure to, if the world is better, if Nigeria is better for all of us, I will benefit, my children will benefit, male and female, right? So I think this is the beginning of a massive, we're now going to see the massive outpouring of women that we haven't seen before, and in a coordinated fashion as well, which I think has been one of our failings before.
Is there a body that is putting something together?
There are so many bodies. So
yeah, but having so many bodies can also be a challenge.
Yes, I don't,
because our energy is dissipated.
But I'm sure you've heard of Ward C before.
Yes, I have.
So Ward C is one of the coordinating bodies, Women's Advocacy and Research and the Documentation Center. So they're one of the rallying points, pulling together so many other women's groups. We're coming together. And this time, formal, informal, because this affects women. Well, that's what people don't understand. It affects women irrespective of your economic status.
Yes.
So rich women are affected. Yes, there are some women, industrialists, who cannot scale their businesses because of bias.
Yes.
Illiterate women, they are affected. We are not safe in our homes because of insecurity. It all comes from this same thing. We're not safe on the roads. We're not safe in the workplaces. We're not safe in the workplaces. So our backs are to the wall. That's what they've done. They put our backs to the wall. They've closed the door to hope. And we said, okay, if we cannot rely on you to sort us out, we will now have to rely on ourselves. And women have a history of when we're ready.
We go all out.
We go all out. So watch this space.
But how much change do women have to make from inwards now? Because truth is, for a woman, your priority at different stages of your life is different from that of a man. So how much changes do women have to make looking inwards before this can become a reality?
You know, I'm not sure about that. The more I've looked, I'm a gender champion. And you know, we have two genders. So when I say I'm a gender champion, I'm not just a women's champion. I'm also a men's champion. And I've looked at it. And you know, when people think, oh, the woman, her children is her priority. For men, their children are their priority too. And I think that is what we need to reorient ourselves as women. To stop thinking that parenting is a woman's only task. Men are also parents. There are two parents, right? So it is a joint task. That's one thing. And the other thing we have to reorient ourselves for is that why are we asking for our rights when we have God-given rights? Yes, we're very faithful, right? No problem. So we have God-given. I'm not asking you for the rights that God has already given me. Okay, because I thought you were making decisions for the benefit of all of us, we allowed you to go
Now I can
alone.
see you're
But
not
now we
speaking.
can see
You're speaking for
you're
yourself
speaking for
and not
yourself
for us.
and not for all, and not for all. So I think it's
All
time for
right.
us to get up.
All right, so women, you heard that. It's time for us to get up. Well, this is a continuous conversation, especially all through this week. We'll be looking at celebrating women from different areas and different industries. Thank you so much, Abiba Balogun, Director, Success for All Limited. It's a continuous fight.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being a part of it. Well, let's now head to the market. Now we have Will E. Bong. Okay, just before we take Will, I will just take a breather and then we'll be back to take the markets. Let's go to the markets now and find out how we closed last weekend. Some predictions or projections for the market this week. Hello, Will.
Hello, Ine. Good morning. Last week at the Forex market and the equities market, we had negative closes for that, as those segments. The market closed and the Forex market closed 13.07% down at $580.99 million dollars there. FX spot was down, forwards, futures, derivatives, all down. We're seeing, and despite the marginal gain of about $25.56 million accretion to the Forex reserves, that didn't actually boost the Forex transactions last week. Now, we saw that except for the Naira spot, where we saw a 0.04% uptick there to 415 Naira 64 kobo against 415 Naira 82 kobo. That's the 64 Naira kobo. 4%, 0.04% uptick recorded, and that's an appreciation against the dollar. Now we see the FX, the bond market continued its bullish trend, maintained a bullish trend from last week, saw more buying interest there, and at the close of the market sustained. We saw average yields, fell by about 10.7%. Fixed income, the NTB space, we also saw bullish trends there. And basically, that was just it for the market last week. We saw yields continue to drop in that space. The local bond space was, and especially for the OMO maturity, there was also a little, expected, especially from the OMO auction. The OMO maturity, we saw 30 billion naira offered by the CBN against all the maturity that came in last week. But we have Eki to tell us about that. Good morning, Eki.
Yeah, hi, today.
Well, Eki, the FX markets, we saw turn negative last week despite the accretion to the Forex reserves. Can you tell us more about that? What's going on in that space?
Okay, yes. As you earlier mentioned, the turnover for the FX market dipped at about $16 million. And really, that just shows the level of activity that was played out at the market last week. So normally, if there was a lot of activities, that would have reflected in the turnover volume. But last week, the activity was low. That was reflected on the turnover to close at 548.70 from the previous week of 564.90.
So what's happening at the forwards market? Is there anything particular happening there for the foreign portfolios?
So for foreign portfolios, the CBN is still continue this intervention for FPIs. So we see a biweekly allocation to FPIs as well as the settlement of the forward maturities. So the CBN allocates both in spot and forward markets, and for the spots, of course, settlement is immediate, and for the forwards, CBN has also been faithful in allocating as Kawinji.
So what happened with the OMO maturity last week and the OMO auction? We saw that the CBN offered less than what was matured. What came into the market? What was rolled over? What happened there?
Okay, as Ayla mentioned, the fixed income market traded on a very bullish note last week up until, this was due to level of system liquidity, up until Friday, where the FX markets the fixed income market traded better. There was an OMO maturity of about 70 billion, while the CBN mocked up about 30 billion. That was an offer, and which was fully oversubscribed. The stock rates came up as same at 7%, 8.5%, and 10% on the standard maturities. So basically, the CBN just mops up the funds as required. So it's not really expected that they mop up the exact maturity. So what happens on the NCD space is, what we've noticed is the DMO conducts the auction and they mop up exactly what matures into the system. So this week we expect a maturity of about 94 billion to the system, and we think that the DMO will conduct the same auction and mop up the entire 94 billion out of the system as well.
Thank you so much, Eki. Eki is a fixed FX dealer at Access Bank. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you.
So, Ini, we're closing off with the equities market, where we had a 0.13% drop last week. 47,000, we're still at the 47,000 level, and we're hoping that we sustain that. Since we've passed the support and resistance levels, we hope that we maintain that. I'll probably get to 50,000 level. We're still at the 25 trillion naira mark. Hopefully we don't drop below that. And the NASD market really did not perform so well. It's closed unchanged. There was no movement in the share price. We saw 600... Investors did not make a gain, they did not make a loss. It was still at 618.66 billion naira as against what was recorded in the previous week. So that's what we have for the report from last week.
It's a new week, and we hope we would not see a lot of volatile movement in the market. A lot of things seems to be going, the other way at this time with the Russian invasion into Ukraine. Oh, of course, follow up on that market. Thank you so much, Will. So we'll take a break now. When we come back, we'll do an opening call to London. We'll stay with us. It's Business Morning on Channels Television. Yeah, welcome back. Let's head to London now, and we see that US and Europe are really considering boycotting Russia oil, and analysts say that this might lead to oil prices hitting as much as $200. Because that will have spiraling effect. Well, we have Juliana joining us from London now to tell us how UK is reacting to all of this. Hello, Juliana. Good morning.
Good morning, Ini.
So prices really going up, 139, 130, and most likely 200 in a short time. How is the UK reacting, market and all reacting to this movement in prices?
Well, I think the UK markets have followed what we've seen overnight in Asia, swift sell-offs on global markets because of this possibility that the US and Europe may indeed sanction oil and gas exports coming out of Russia. At this time, they haven't done that, even though there have been a barrage of economic sanctions because of just how much Europe depend upon Russian oil and gas exports. They haven't yet done that, but we did have comments yesterday from the US Secretary of State Anthony Blinken saying that these discussions are in an elevated phase, and that's because, of course, we saw the collapsing of 2 humanitarian corridors, so millions of people could escape from cities within Ukraine. Within 30 minutes, that corridor was swiftly collapsed. There was shelling. We've seen some really brutal images of families trying to flee who have been killed. And I think that's really added the temperature up. Of course, in response to this, oil is surging. I believe oil has surged by about $40 a barrel since the start of the conflict. As you said, it's currently trading at about $140 a barrel. This is Brent crude, which is the benchmark. And so international markets are completely spooked at the moment. The FTSE 100, which is the UK blue chip index, that has at the moment having its worst day in over a year. That fell by about 2.9%. The FTSE 250, the domestically focused market, which is usually pretty shielded from international conflict, that fell this morning by about 4.6%. So there's certainly nerves and everybody's on edge at the moment. Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, is hosting the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, as well as the Dutch PM Mark Rutte. Lots of discussions that perhaps Canada would indeed be brought in to try and shift some of its oil and gas to Europe if indeed this pretty unprecedented sanction were to come into place, which would mean Russia would not be exporting oil, and perhaps there are discussions that Tehran would be exporting more oil to the West. More to come as soon as we get it.
Yeah, sure. Of course, more to come, and a lot of lessons to learn from all of this. But we also see that the UK has donated about £100 million to Ukraine. This is coming from the public. And what's the plan for it? What's the target?
Well, the target is to help those fleeing. I think, according to the latest update, I believe about 1.5 million people have fled Ukraine. I think Britain is pretty much known around the world as being a very charitable nation, and this £100 million is being coordinated by the Disasters Community Emergency Fund. This is a fund that consists of about 15 different charities, world-leading charities that are going to help get aid, medical support. I believe the Queen, Her Majesty the Queen, as well as the Duke of Cambridge and the Prince of Wales have all donated sizable funds, and more money is coming in. I think quite right now, the British government are asking people not to send clothing. I think even though people do need clothes, of course, when you're fleeing war, but I think there is so much more important items that need to be made, which is why they're asking people to donate as much as you can. So even though on the one hand, yes, Britain is being praised for giving £100 million, there has also been some huge criticisms towards the Home Secretary, Priti Patel. We've heard that there have been tens of thousands of refugee application forms been put into the government, and only 50 of the 1.5 million Ukrainians that have fled have been given a house here in the UK. Not happy. So we're just going to wait and see what the government respond to that. But in terms of money, Britain are doing their best.
All right, thank you so much, Juliana. We'll certainly have updates at 1:30 during Business Incorporated.
Thank you.
Let's see how the crypto market is reacting to the continuous war in Ukraine. Hey, Laddie.
Oh, yes, Ini. Well, it's all about oil today, and the markets, risk assets, are not having a good today. It's a bloodbath out there, and in the crypto space, it's extreme fear this morning. Everyone is afraid. Every trader is afraid in that market right now. It's at 23 points. Looking at the fear greed index, checking market sentiment for the day. Market cap, $1.71 trillion, down about 3.55%. Volume traded in the total crypto space, it's up about 27%. Basically from the sell-offs we see in the market. Bitcoin dominance, 42.27%. Price of Bitcoin this morning lost that 39K level, trading at $38,155, down 3.35%. And we see volume traded in Bitcoin, $22.69 billion. And we see Ethereum. Ethereum's not left out there. Ethereum's also supposed to be down this morning. Looking at the top balls by market cap there, we see BNB. It's mostly red. BNB is down 2.74%. Cardano there, trading at 81 cents. It's down 4%. The only green we're having on the top balls of market cap, surprisingly, is XRP. XRP has been acting quite stable for a while now, but it's the only green we're having on this counter. Let's bring in Olumide Additional now, financial market analyst. Hello, Olumide. Good morning.
Yeah. Hello, Laddie. Good morning.
Yes, Olumide. Well, it's a bloodbath out there this morning. Somehow, I expected this would actually happen, but we see gold is actually going up. We're seeing Bitcoin losing that 39K. How are you seeing the market?
Yeah, just like rightly mentioned, we're seeing gold decouple from the crypto market, telling you that there is a positive correlation between Bitcoin and the stock market, because it seems that Bitcoin is aligned with riskier assets other than safe haven. So that's not surprising. That just tells you the fact that investors are more keen to the metals rather than the digital in gold, that's Bitcoin. But having said that, we also need to understand that investors are a bit more concerned that the escalated speech by President Putin on Sunday, that saying that until Ukraine demilitarized, meaning that they have to drop arms and surrender to Russian terms, that it seems the attack will continue, kept Bitcoin dropping at some point below 38,000. But I think the support level right now where Bitcoin is trading gives some form of hope to the bulls. Looking at indicators, you could see that the technical indicators show that there's a strong resistance on the 100-day moving average. That is around 45,000. and it remains to be seen if Bitcoin can survive that. Also, you know, the US Fed is some days time would be talking on the interest rate. Any hike on that point would definitely put Bitcoin on the sell-off side. So it looks very bearish right now. But I think, to be honest with you, compared to relative to other risky assets, we could see European stocks dropping as much as 3%. I think Bitcoin has kept some immune against this rapid sell-offs. You know.
Yeah, that means Bitcoin has held up quite impressively at this point. All right, Lumide, let's see how Bitcoin survives this week. Thank you so much, Lumide.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, looking at the top gainers, yeah, once you see stablecoins on the gainers list, you know it's real. UDSP stablecoin at $1 is up by 0.50%, and we see Waves. Waves and XRP are the only coins there, cryptocurrencies that are not stablecoins. You see Waves there up 0.37%. UST stablecoin, it's $1 up 0.03%. And the 5 losers there, we see Phantom, the DAG blockchain there is down 17%, topping the losers counter. Anchor Protocol, $4.18, down 15.30%. And we see Zcash there, $106.23. So it remains to be seen if Bitcoin and the crypto market survives the bloodbath this week.
Yeah, the bloodbath. But you know, we had a lot of activities in the crypto space last week. I remember Ukraine, I think as at Friday, they had about $30 million dollars of Bitcoin. Even Russia were looking for how to, you know, escape the sanctions going into the crypto space. So I thought that would actually bring a lot of activities, yes, and pump the market. But I
guess the market is too afraid right now to even...
the war is affecting everybody.
Exactly.
Thank you so much, Ladi. Well, that's it on the program today. We have 4 more episodes this week, so it's going to be an exciting time. And remember, we're celebrating women this week, so you need to join every single episode of that. 1:30 will be Business Incorporated. Ladi will be on with you at that time. I'm Ini John Mekwa.